music fans, music collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program legendary West Coast vocalist, guitarist, a pioneer in the LA music scene of the 70s and 80s. I welcome in the great Greg Leon. Greg, Brian C., honor to have you.
Yes.
How you doing, Greg? Everything good?
Everything's great, man. It's just great.
So, Greg, let's go back to the beginning of your pro music career. You're a product of the LA rock music scene of the 70s and 80s. During that era, give us a feel of how the music culture was like in LA during those years.
Well, in those years, there was a lot of places to play. A lot of people had backyard parties all the time. 200, 300, 400, 500 people would show up when we would play. And we were just following the same thing that Van Halen did. You know, you play, you get your following together, you play every party, everywhere they'll let you play, and make your way into Hollywood, and, you know, hopefully it turns into something great. I got a frog in my throat this morning for some reason. But there was places to play everywhere. There was a huge... Especially after Van Halen cracked, everybody came out to the West Coast, and it was just 7 out of 7 nights a week, great bands playing everywhere, and there was a whole scene where people were going out. I mean, a lot of the people were just coming into, you know, the age where they want to go out and see bands, and they would have their favorite bands and follow them. So it was just fun all the time, man. I mean, there was studios everywhere, parties everywhere. For, you know, a guy just out of high school, it was pretty amazing, you know, and then the bands I played in, and, you know, we had huge followings. I mean, it was just a blast.
And Greg, now, how difficult was it back then getting into or being recruited into a respected band? Was it difficult?
I was recruited a lot of times, actually, and most of them I turned down. But, you know, I was Randy Rhoads' favorite guitar player. So when he went with Ozzy, I got a phone call from Kevin and from Randy. Wanted to know if I wanted to join the band. So I did. I knew we had rehearsed at the same place. You know, we were all friends. And so I took that for about, I don't know, maybe a little under a year. We did a bunch of shows. And Dokken had been after me for, God, about 2 years to join the band. He wanted a second guitar player, and he was checking me out. And we did a show together at a place called the Rock Corporation years ago in Van Nuys, California. And we became friends after that. And he just kept calling me, and he had the magic line that says, "I've got European dates." So I left the Dubrow Quiet Riot days, and 28 days later, we were on a plane going over to Hamburg, Germany, and we played a bunch of shows over there. It was a blast.
I mean, and you were right there, center stage as an influencer in you know, the early heavy metal music, gaining popularity, which your band, which you mentioned, Sweet 19, who eventually had in the lineup Tommy Lee of Motley Crue. And you and Tommy always had a tight bond, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, I love Tommy. I don't know about it anymore. He seems to kind of gotten a little weird over the years, but I guess money and fame will do that to a lot of people. But yeah, no, we were totally tight. We hung out 7 out of 7 nights a week. I actually stayed out at his house, his folks' place with him out in West Covina, probably 3-4 nights a week while we played together. And we had his dad, David, built a beautiful rehearsal studio in this big, huge garage they had, and it was completely soundproof. So, you know, we just played around the clock. In fact, their parents' bedroom was right above it, and we could play all night, you know, full blast with Marshalls and SVTs going, and didn't even bother them. They couldn't hear it. So, I mean, it was a dream thing for me. You know, we didn't have to rent a place. It wasn't moving equipment. We just go in there and play all the time.
And Tommy was always a talent, right? Even at his young age.
Absolutely. He was after me. I had a guy in the band who I'm still great friends with, Gary Holland, who went by the name Gary Hallinan back in the day. And I don't know what happened. We had a little falling out. And Tommy had been after me for quite a while, and I couldn't find a good drummer, especially somebody as good as Gary was. Gary was a great drummer, still is. And Tommy kept showing up at my shows, and I'd go to a club, and there he'd be. You know, he was like 17 or 18, I don't know. It just seemed like some kid, a kind of a goofy kid, you know. And I figured, well, what the hell? I can't find a guy. I'll just go and hang out with this guy and we'll jam. And, you know, I said, well, find a bass player because I don't, you know, my guy, I broke the band up when Gary left. And anyways, he found this guy, John Kemp, and we started playing, and I showed John the parts, and Tommy already knew all of my songs. I mean, he had really taken notes, and he was like ready to do it right from the day one. And just a drumming machine. I remember one night we were sleeping up in his bedroom, and there was twin beds up there, and I got woken up to the sound of like a drum solo on his pillows, and he was sound asleep doing a drum solo, hitting the wall and hitting his pillows, and I'm like, just sat up in the bed and looked at him and just started smiling. I go, what the hell, man? This guy's born for this.
Wow. Now, you met Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads at a college concert, right?
Yes, it was at Glendale City College, and yeah, I mean, I was the hot thing in town at that time. Everything evolved around me and my bands at the time, and my drummer at the time was head of the Glendale Unified School District. They were, what do you call them, janitors. And he had a job doing that, and so he went in earlier in the day and cleaned the place out with a couple other people. And on the front seats, right in the front of the stage, put reserved tickets. I don't know where the hell he even got these things. He put reserved things down. Well, those were for us, so we paid I think it was $1.75, and we went in there and just about had our heads blown off. I mean, then Quiet Riot came out, and I went backstage afterwards to meet Randy, and I ended up in Van Halen's dressing room, and Dave's, with that gruff voice, yeah, man, they're down the street, down the hall. So I went there and met Randy, and Randy and I became pretty good friends. I mean, I was his favorite local guitar player. And I met and hung out with Eddie a couple of times, actually. One time was at a place called the Wood Sound, and oh, my God, could that guy party. Oh, my God.
Really? Give us the story, Greg. Give us the story that we may not know of about Van Halen.
Okay, well, all right. Well, the owner of the club was this guy, Phil, and we used to play there all the time. And my sisters would go there and hang out, and they'd always come home every couple of weeks and sort of go, yeah, Eddie Van David Lee Roth was here, and he bought everybody drinks and hung out with us. I'm thinking, why the hell do I never run into these guys? I've been looking for them. I want to meet them, and so I told Phil, and Phil goes, well, Eddie comes in every once in a while. I go, well, give me a call the next time he comes in, or he calls you and says he's going to come in. So a couple weeks later, I get this phone call. It's Phil. He goes, hey, Greg, Eddie's coming down. Just go in and go straight to the office. That's where we'll be. So, I get the phone call. I jump in my car. It's a half-hour drive. I'm there in about 20 minutes. I run in the club. I'd go to the back to the office there, and sure enough, there's Eddie Van Halen. And I'd met him once before, but it was very briefly in his backyard, and we spoke for about 45 minutes with my band Sweet 19 at the time, the original lineup. And anyway, so we're in the office, and all of a sudden a bag of Coke comes out, and he had a guitar there. And we handed a guitar back and forth for, oh, God, I'd say an hour and a half. We're doing lines. Back then, nobody knew how bad that stuff was. And we were all young, and so it was just a party atmosphere, and I couldn't believe I was sitting with my hero, Eddie Van Halen, and handing a guitar back and forth. And, he had such great dexterity in his hands and such a great reach. And I remember thinking, man, he must have huge hands. And we put our hands together, and our hands were exactly the same size. I lined up where the palm meets the first finger, and the fingers were exactly the same size. Mine were a little fatter than his, but I'll never forget that. I was like, wow, that guy is like really flexible. But that was just a great thing. The next time, I didn't meet him, but I actually rented him one of my Marshall amps, and he did the Beat It solo on the Thriller album with that amp, which I still have. And I loaned it to Randy when he got the gig with Ozzy, because he was playing through a solid-state PV head and a Ampeg, a 412 bottom with L-Tech speakers in it, and he got his tone out of a Distortion Plus, an MXR Distortion Plus pedal. And I was just like, dude, that's not. And I remember they were telling him he's got to get different amps, so he knew I had a great tone. And I said, well, shit, just borrow my stuff. You've got to do these rehearsals here in town. Just borrow my stuff. So I lent it to him, and he went with Marshall after that. And he never did get rid of the Distortion Plus, as far as I know, though. He always relied on that as his overdrive.
Wow, I mean, Greg, being around these icons, you must have been in awe, huh?
I wasn't. Randy was just my friend. He was just my, a buddy of mine, and we went to parties together. There's pictures of us both dressed up in nurses' outfits out there. We were to a Halloween party one time, and we were two skinny guys with long hair dressed up as girls. And, just funny stuff like that and parties and, rehearsals. They would rehearse before us usually, and we'd come in afterwards and do our thing. It was a place called Visions Rehearsal Studios in Burbank. And some great times. I mean, it was, like I said in the beginning of this interview, there was parties all the time. And I remember Quiet Riot showing up at our parties. And Randy had called me. He goes, "Hey, we're thinking about coming to your party tonight. If we do, can we get up and play it?" Hell yeah, you can. So we'd have a surprise for the people at a party. All of a sudden, Quiet Riot's playing. You got to remember, Quiet Riot at the time was the biggest band in L.A. because Van Halen had been signed and they were gone now. So it was, Quiet Riot was the deal. And they were, all of a sudden played at some backyard party, and there'd be 300, 400, 500 people there. And, it was just fun all the time, man. The summers back in those days in the 80s, the late 70s and 80s were just fantastic. I mean, all through high school, I played, I think, probably every weekend, Friday, and a lot of times Friday and Saturday nights at backyard parties and house parties and all kinds of stuff. And hell, I was making more money back then than my folks were working a full-time job sometimes, It was just, man, I just thought this was never going to end. This is the best. There's girls everywhere and parties everywhere. It was great.
You had an amazing career. I mean, the big opportunity came for you taking over Randy Rhoads' position there. Big shoes to fill, huh?
What was the last part that dropped out?
Playing for Quiet Riot, taking over the big shoes of Randy Rhoads. How did you get news for that?
It was easy. I mean, I'd seen 100 of the rehearsals. I'd been to a bunch of their shows. We'd done shows together. And it would just seem like a natural progression for me. I just kept stepping up, getting offers. And I got offered the gig in what do you call it, Foghat when Dave Peverett left. I was playing at the NAMM show in Anaheim. And the road crew came up to me and they go, "Dude, you're the guy we're looking for. You play slide guitar, you sing, you play regular guitar." And they were one of my favorite bands at the time. Hell, when Sweet 19, we did half of their music. We were still doing covers and stuff. But it was not, to answer your question, it was not hard. But when I went in, I told him, I go, "I'm not going to do Randy's licks. I'm going to do my licks. I mean, I'm Greg Leon. He's Randy Rhoads." And to me, he was just my buddy. He was another guitar player. We'd sit in his room and, trade licks back and forth sometimes. And, it was just like your buddy. I'm sure there's a million people listening to this right now. They got a buddy that they've known forever. Sometimes the friend makes it big. Sometimes they make it big. But they're just their hometown buddy. So it was not a big thing. I mean, Eddie, I didn't know that well. So when I met him, that was a big deal. I mean, he was, voted #1 guitar player and, the most influential guy since Hendrix. So, that was a big deal, a way bigger deal. I mean, Eddie, huh?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, Eddie changed the whole landscape of rock guitar and what it could be. Before that, it was Johnny Winters, Ritchie Blackmore, Rick Derringer, Frank Marino, who I love. I think he's so underrated. He's one of the best guitar players ever and an amazing songwriter. But there was other guys like that. But when Eddie Van Halen came out, everything changed. Everybody was trying to be Eddie. I mean, he was our guitar lesson. Every record, we'd wait for that one to come out. Okay, well, there's what's possible now, so let's figure out how we did it. And that was how it was, the consensus of all the guitar players that were, into playing lead and stuff at the time.
Now, Greg, I mentioning Ozzy before, many listeners here may not realize this, but is it a fact that you actually wrote the riff on Osbourne's legendary song Crazy Train?
It is true. It was a song of mine called Every Time. And Randy dug it, and I showed him how to play it. And I said, "Dude, it's so easy. It's just take the chords from, Swingtown from Steve Miller and speed them up and turn them around and just get a rhythm on it." And this is what I came up with. And it was and he didn't tell me he was going to use it, but I guess he brought it in to one of their rehearsals when they're coming up with songs, and they liked it and wrote some lyrics around it and stuff. And basically, Crazy Train was born. And I made millions of dollars off of that. No, I'm kidding. I never got a penny.
I mean, that's really remarkable. And then you join yet another iconic band in Dokken. Now, which you were part of Don's second lineup when the group toured Germany, right?
Yes.
So how did you get that gig?
Well, he called me, and he, like I said earlier, he told me that he had European dates. And I was at a point in the Dubrow Quiet Riot thing that Kevin was very hard to get along with. He was the most opinionated person I'd ever met. Even if he didn't know about something, he had an opinion on it. And it's very, very hard to deal with people like that. And I was the first person that brought in the Slade tunes to him years before Spencer Prophet did. And my sister Nancy had won the album Sladest on KHJ radio here, and it was the AM radio back in the day. And so I brought that in, and he just went nuts. I mean, it basically went to blows. He was screaming at me, and that guy had a loud voice. When he yelled at you, you heard it, you felt it. And I just don't go for somebody yelling at me, especially when I'm trying to help the band, because we'd had a band meeting. Hey, man, we need a song like You Really Got Me, like what Van Halen did, a remake that we can make our own and really, really knock it home just to get in the door. And so I brought that in, and man, that was it. After that, it was just, I didn't have the respect for him that I did before, because he was pretty much an ass at that point when he went off like that on me. You don't do that in the band. I was just making a suggestion, but for somebody to overreact like that and, scream and yell and get in your face about it, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah, Greg, and to me, Greg, Dokken's sound was originally soft melodic. It was like glam rock music until you came along. You brought more of a guitar sound with hooks and riffs, more heavy metal attribute, to the band.
Yeah, that's very true. I came in with the band Boston. Because we all four sang. I brought in my drummer from Sweet 19, Gary Holland, and Gary's got a phenomenal voice, super high-end voice, really clear. Like Michael Anthony, actually, just super high, clear. He's got great pitch. So we had 4-part harmonies in the band, and that's what I wanted, because those were the bands that were selling records, the guys with harmonies. And, I had my Frank Marino, my Jimi Hendrix, and Robin Trower attitude towards guitar playing. And it worked fine. It was great. I mean, a lot of people have come up to me and said that was their favorite lineup. And Don even said that to me a couple times. Because there was no bullshit. I don't deal with bulletin bands. I'm just there for the music. I never once asked either of those bands for any money. In fact, when we did make money, I tell them, put it back in the band, use it for promotion, use it to get us clothes or whatever, drum heads, sticks, whatever. But, I don't need the money. I'm still living at home, and, I didn't need to be getting money from them. I just figured that'll all come down the line.
I mean, no question. I mean, when you were in the lineup, the band sounded like a real rock band. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, it was great.
It was great. And then talk about the Greg Leon Invasion. How was that formed?
Well, that's kind of funny. I was putting a band together after I left Dokken, and I went to a Van Halen show. I think it was at the Coliseum here in Los Angeles. And there was some kid sitting in front of me, and he had a T-shirt on that said Van Halen World Invasion on the back. I kept seeing the name Invasion. I kept going, man, that is a powerful word. And that's what I'm trying to do, is invade the world and get my music out there, So the next day at rehearsal, I brought it into the guys, and I said, you know what? I got an idea for a name of the band, and this is like 1981, way before Denny Vincent stole it. And he had my old manager, and that's how they came up with that. But that's besides my. So I told the guys in the band, and they both loved the idea. They thought it was great, because I'd just come out of Dokken. I was like a rising star on the LA scene, and it was. They went totally for it. They didn't hem and haw about it at all.
And Greg, I love the song "Soldier of Love" from the Wishing Well album. I mean, that is some heavy duty stuff. I have a little sample I want to play.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's play Soldier of Love. Soldier of Love, Greg
You
Leon Invasion, the Wishing
you
Well
faded
album. That's great stuff, man.
you faded out at the best part is going into the guitar solo. Come on, man.
we only have 26 minutes here, but that's good stuff. I gave the audience a little sample of your work.
Right on, right on. You know, I got a new record coming out on the 10th of February. I signed a deal with Sony, and I got a worldwide release, finally, a real record deal at this advanced stage before they put me in a home. But no, the record's great. It's called Tell the Children. It'll be out February 10th. And I love this record. It's the record I've been wanting to put out and record for years. I finally got phenomenal musicians around me, and they got my vision, and we recorded it, as with most of these records, at my studio. I've got a 24-track tape studio, so it's all analog, and it sounds amazing. That last record you played was done at my studio, but it was on my 16-track tape machine, and I finally got the tape machine that I wanted, and man, does it sound good. Now, sonically, this new record is phenomenal. I'm so proud of it.
So for the listeners, mention your website so, people can log in and see your, your fabulous website. Go right ahead.
It's GregLeonInvasion.com. It doesn't get any easier than that one. GregLeonInvasion.com.
So now, is the band going to start touring soon? I mean, are you going to be touring again? Are you going to be heading back to the East Coast at all?
I hope so. I've only done a few shows on the East Coast. We went to Maine and some areas around Maine. We were in the Midwest for a while too. We did some stuff in Iowa and just some big. It was kind of funny. I mean, it was reminded me of the old days where they have a big flatbed truck and they got big old huge PAs on the side and the whole town shows up. It was just amazing. And, but yeah, we went back to Maine and did some club shows back there, pretty big clubs, and had a ball. And people were so responsive to it. And the new band, we've only done one local show, and the people went absolutely crazy for us because nobody's playing this type of music anymore. They're all, people are, I think, especially, guys my age, they're not into hip hop and stuff. And you go to a club and it's all hip hop with a big bass drum beating the whole time. And all you want to do is get the hell out of there. And, we had people just like going crazy, pushing themselves to the front of the stage. And hell, the owner of the club was right in front of me the whole time, just like smiling on his face, giving me thumbs up. And we got encore after encore. We actually ended up playing for 2 hours, which is nobody does that in Hollywood or L.A. And that was at a club called the Universal Bar and Grill, a little tiny place, but it was completely packed out and had a great time. Just wonderful. Just testing the waters again,
Yeah, and just a final question. I mean, you've been in the business so long. You must have, so many changes in the business. What do you think is the biggest change that you've witnessed in this industry?
Making any money with it. There's no money in it anymore. The only money you get basically from live shows. But as far as getting money for record sales, that's down to almost nothing. Even if you sell records or get downloads, I mean, I know bands that have had, gold records, platinum records, and they've got millions of downloads, and they're getting checks for $17. I've seen it. It's like, oh my God. So it's you got to do it for the love of it. I own my own business, so I make money other ways. Actually, a few different other ways, but yeah, you just got to do it because you love it, and if you don't do it, you're miserable, and that's where I'm at. If I'm not playing in a band and getting able to go out and sing my ass off and play, and the camaraderie with the guys, too, in the band. We have such a good time, and all of us are funny as hell, and we just crack each other up all the time, so we all look forward to hanging out and playing. And it's a great lineup. I got Rick Brandt on bass, and I met him at a jam night thing, and come to find out he's the first chair LA Philharmonic cello player. And then my best friend Mark Tate kept telling me about this drummer that played that he knew that he did some church thing with, and this guy Ronnie Siago from New York. And Ronnie, I come to find out, he's been on over 450 CDs. I mean, the guy has played with everybody. He teaches drums at a university level. He studied under Carmine Appice. I mean, the guy he's got that New York thing that I've wanted my whole life. And all those guys from that area, there's a way they play and a way they approach music that's just amazing. And Ronnie's that guy, and yeah, it's just amazing. So I got this band together, and we got together. In fact, Ronnie had been trying to play with me. We had jammed once, just him and me, and I hate doing it without a bass player, but he kept calling me up like every month or two. Hey, man, when are we going to do that record? Hey, man, when are we going to do that record? And I just didn't think I had a bass player that was good enough until I met Rick. So we got together, played for 4 hours, just jammed, and we all walked outside, and nobody was saying nothing, and everybody was thinking, man, this is the shit. This is so natural. So one of them, I don't think it was me, said we ought to call this a band and start working on it. And I think that kind of broke the ice because we were all feeling the same thing, but nobody knew where everybody else was. And so we started playing together, and then we were just about ready to play some shows, and the stupid COVID thing hit. So everything got shut down, and we took some time off, but we kept in touch, and I kept going, guys, I got these songs. Let me just show them to you, and we'll record them. And we're not going to get COVID. Just come on up. It's just the three of us, As long as you're healthy, I'm healthy, and you're healthy, we're good. So that's what we did, just like we did the Wishing Well record. I wrote these songs, showed them to the band, went and recorded them. We learned the song 1 or 2 days, come in the third day while it's still fresh, mic everything up, and just track it, and then we move on to the next song. And in the meantime, I'd be working on, overdubs or writing lyrics or whatever, to get the song finished. And that's how I approached this Tell the Children record, too, and I love it. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. And secondly is the Wishing Well record. I got Stuart Brooks on bass, who was from England, who played with the Pretty Things. I got a story with that guy. He played with the Pretty Things, and he played with Black Cat Bones with Paul Kossoff. They grew up as neighbors, from Free, and they started the band Free together, and they couldn't find a vocalist, and the guys in the band found Paul Rogers, and they brought Paul Rogers in, and Stuart didn't like him, thought he sang too hard and was too scratchy and stuff, and decided I don't want him. It's either him or me, and they said, well, I guess it's him. They went on, and that was that.
But Greg, let me mention your website because the show's ending. I do apologize. Okay. I want to mention your website, GregLeonInvasion.com, one of Hollywood's best heavy metal guitarists of all time. Listen, it's an honor to have you. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the offer to come and join you and be part of your show. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. We'll keep in touch.
All righty. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Greg Leon. Until next week, happy collecting to all.